Another day of testimony just wrapped up in the trial of Dr. Raynaldo Ortiz. He's accused of poisoning IV bags at the Baylor Surgical Center in 2022. And when the investigation launched that year, we spoke to a grieving widower who lost his wife after she injected herself with the center's IV bags. She died in their home.
I saw firsthand witness to her demise, and it was, the most agonizing thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Today, Mr. Casper is reliving that day once again on the stand. WFAA's Sydney Persing has been in court all week and joins us from outside the Dallas Federal Courthouse now. Sydney, it was another emotional day in court.
Izzy, Mr. Casper's testimony, as you mentioned, it was incredibly emotional, probably the most captivating testimony just from watching jurors, I can tell you, so far in this case. He described to jurors how he and Melanie had been together, married for 30 years. They met in college, really the loves of each other's lives. We're going to pull up photos of Melanie for you now. You'll see John in some of those. He testified today that in June 2022, she was feeling sick. She came home from work. She worked at that center as an anesthesiologist. And he said that Melanie asked him to help her administer an IV bag. He explained how their home had been undergoing some remodeling. So when he helped her get that IV bag in, she went to the apartment sort of in the back of their property over their garage. And he described how 5 to 6 minutes later, she called her husband screaming. He said no words came out, just screams. He rushed toward her at that apartment over the garage. He explained how he watched his wife collapse. John Casper, he said, a lot of very emotional things to jurors today. He cried through much of this, but perhaps the one thing he said that stuck out to me the most is he described the exchange he had with his wife as they waited for the ambulance. He told jurors that Melanie screamed to him, "My arm, my chest." John said he looked down at his wife's arm and saw that IV bag, and he said, "Is it the IV bag?" He explained how Melanie replied, "No, it's in my arm, it's in my chest." John then told the jury, again through sobs, "I'll have regrets forever that I did not pull that IV bag out of her arm." Another particularly painful moment from his testimony today that stuck with me, he was talking to prosecutors about how obviously EMT, they'd come to the house and they tried for several minutes to revive Melanie. They tried CPR for a very long time, and prosecutors asked John, they said, did those EMT workers, did they ever tell you that your wife had died? Do you remember that moment? And again, through sobs, he explained how he learned she had died. He overheard one of those medical professionals say to the other, quote, "Okay, we're going to call it." Again, very emotional, but there was a lot of other important witness testimony today I don't want us to lose sight of. Ortiz's youngest alleged victim, a gentleman by the name of Jack. He was 18 at the time of his surgery. We're going to pull up some photos for you of him now. He had gone in after a sports injury. He needed a rhinoplasty, and during that surgery, prosecutors say he suffered a major cardiac event. This young man today, he explained to jurors how he was expecting to wake up 2 hours after that surgery. He did not wake up until the next night in the ICU at another facility at a hospital, and he explained he couldn't breathe, he couldn't talk, he couldn't move. The worst night of his life, he said. And he also explained really quickly that he woke up essentially without a nose. They were not able to finish that surgery. So he said he basically had no nose for several days. We'll be back here tomorrow covering much more witness testimony. Chris.
Yeah, some of those firsthand accounts certainly hit home, Sydney, and really drive home how serious these charges are.